If you're a high functioning person who gets stuck, the problem isn't usually discipline, and it's not even that you don't know what to do, and it's not that you're even secretly lazy. The problem is that you're running a loop. And what makes that loop dangerous is this. It can produce results. You can be productive while still being trapped. You can be responsible while still being reactive. You can look stable while your inner world is being driven by pressure, fear, control, and survival. So today I'm going to show you what that loop actually is, why it keeps repeating, even when you're smart, and the protocol that you can use to interrupt it in real time. If you stick with me to the end, I'm going to show you how you can join my school community where you can post your specific loop, and I'll help you map it and even tighten your protocol alongside other high functioning people who are also working on the same thing. My name is Malcolm Lilienthal. My niche is identity driven emotional mastery and habit transformation. And what that means is I help people break reactive patterns, regulate emotions under pressure, and live with agency instead of autopilot. This channel is for the high functioning person. You handle your responsibilities, you show up, you get things done, you're the dependable one. But if you're honest, there's something underneath, a repeating cycle, a pattern you keep falling into when pressure hits. So maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's anger, maybe it's control, maybe it's shutdown, maybe it's escapism, but it's a loop. Here's the shift I want you to make from the beginning. High functioning is not the same as emotional mastery. High function is the ability to perform under demand. On the other hand, emotional mastery is the ability to stay internally governed under demand. So high function says, I'll get it done no matter what. Emotional mastery says, I'll do what's needed without abandoning myself, without losing my posture, and without entering survival mode. A lot of high functioning people are basically living on a form of emotional credit. So they pay later for what they do now. They push through today, and then the cost collects interest. And that interest could look like irritability, tension, burnout, emotional numbness, disconnection, and that constant feeling of being on edge. So let me define the loop real quick. A loop is a repeated pattern of thought, emotion, and behavior that your nervous system defaults to under pressure because it's familiar. And it works in the short term. So here's the structure. A trigger leads to an interpretation, and then an interpretation leads to a state shift. And when I say state shift, I'm talking about how you go from flight or fight or into rest and relaxation. That state shift leads to my default mode. My default mode gives me short-term relief, but the short-term relief leads to long-term cost, and then I repeat the sequence. So let me break it down like this. So first you have the trigger. So something hits, let's say pressure, conflict, uncertainty, feeling behind, feeling judged, feeling like you're failing, feeling like you have too much to carry. And then that leads to the interpretation. So your mind runs a script. It might sound like, if I don't handle this, everything will fall apart. I can't slow down. I have to fix this right now. I can't look weak. This shouldn't be happening. This is unfair. I'm alone in this. And that leads to the state shift. And that's when your body shifts. You might not notice it at first, but you go into a state. So for some people, it's anxiety or overthinking, or it's anxiety and overthinking. For others, it's control and intensity. For others, it might be irritability and anger. And for some, it's shutdown. And that leads to the default move. So then you do what you always do. You do what you always do to cope. Overwork, control, micromanage, people please, withdraw, scroll, drink, numb out, avoid, blow up, fix everything, perform harder. And then that leads to a short-term relief. And so here's why the loop is so powerful. It works. It gives relief. It gives a sense of control. It reduces uncertainty. It provides a hit of certainty or escape. But that comes at a cost, a long-term cost. So later it costs you relationships, through relationship strain, energy, your energy drops, peace disappears, you become less present, you feel guilt or shame, you start to think, what is wrong with me? And then you repeat it. So that cost becomes your next trigger. So fatigue triggers irritability. Irritability triggers conflict. Conflict triggers control. Control triggers exhaustion. Exhaustion triggers avoidance. And avoidance triggers shame. And shame triggers overwork. And then the loop keeps going. So the first thing I want you to see is this. You are not randomly struggling. You're repeating a system. Now, here's the reason. The reason high functioning people stay stuck longer than others is because the loop produces results. It's as simple as that. So when you overwork, things get done, don't they? When you control, chaos reduces, doesn't it? When you people please, conflict decreases, doesn't it? When you shut down, you avoid pain. When you escape, you get temporary relief. So the brain learns this works. But it only works in the short term. It's like putting a debt payment on a credit card. You get the benefit now and you pay the interest later. And the real trap is this. The more you succeed externally, the more you avoid confronting the internal pattern. And that's why awareness alone doesn't change you. A lot of high functioning people are hyper aware. They can explain the loop. They can even diagnose it. They can talk about it, but they still repeat it. But they don't have a protocol for the moment the state shifts. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a simple protocol that interrupts the loop in real time. This is not motivational. This is tactical. And I call this the 90-second loop interrupt. So step one, you want to name the loop. In the moment you feel the state shift, your body changes, your physiology changes. You say, this is my fill in the blank loop. That could look like this is my control loop, my anxiety loop, my anger loop, my shutdown loop, my escape loop. The reason this matters is it matters because naming it moves you from being inside it to observing it. The next step is you want to regulate your body. So 2 slow breaths, longer exhale than inhale. You're not doing this to calm down. You're doing this to regain governance. When you're dysregulated, you don't choose, you react. Step 3, I want you to identify the script. I want you to ask yourself, what is the sentence my mind is repeating right now? So some examples could be, if I don't do this, everything falls apart. I have to fix this. They shouldn't treat me like this. I can't handle this. I need relief right now. That sentence is usually the steering wheel. Step 4, choose the next right action. Not the perfect plan, and not even the full solution. Just the next right action that aligns with who you are, not what you fear. Sometimes the next right action is pause before responding, or ask a question instead of making a statement. Maybe it's taking a 5-minute walk, or writing the thought down, or maybe send one message, do one task, go drink water and come back. High functioning people love complexity, but freedom usually begins with one governed move. Step 5 is we're going to close the loop on purpose. We can say, I'm not obeying the loop today. That's not hype, that's a decision. Then later you review the data. What triggered you? What the script was, what you chose, and what happened. That's how you retrain the pattern. So let me give you a quick few examples. First, you have a control loop. So the trigger is you feel behind, and then the script is, if I don't take over, this will fail. Your default move might be to micromanage, tighten, or push. So then you interrupt it by naming it. You can name it, regulate, and ask, what's the next right decision or action? You can delegate one thing, communicate one boundary. For the next example, we could talk about the anxiety loop. So the trigger for anxiety would be uncertainty, and the script would be, I need to figure this out right now. And maybe somebody's default move might be overthinking, spiraling, research, reassurance seeking. How I'm going to interrupt that is I'm going to name it, regulate, write the fear, choose one action, stop feeding the spiral. Now, if you want help mapping your loop, this is exactly why I built my school community, because high functioning people do not need more content. They need a place to apply the protocol, get feedback, and stay consistent. So here's what I want you to do. Comment loop if you want the link. Inside the school, there's a pinned thread called Post Your Loop. You'll post your trigger, your script, the move, the cost, and the loop name. Then I'll respond with a tailored interrupt protocol, and you'll also be able to read other high-functioning loops and realize you're not alone in this. You don't get unstuck by trying harder. You get unstuck by operating differently. Comment loop and I'll see you inside. Titans aren't born, they're forged.